appreciate you taking some time. I know you got a busy off season with all
Yeah, no problem, man.
with all the snow and and stuff. So just wanted to talk a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and where what you're kind of doing right now.
Yeah, I mean, Donnie Murphy grew up in California. California kid living in Michigan now. Grew up in California up until I want to say 2021. And played sports for life out there. Played year round, and so it was one of those things where like baseball became second nature to me. Used to play it 12 months a year, die hard. So it was always something I wanted to do, and so just got fortunate enough to had an opportunity to get drafted and play. And so when I was 19, I got drafted, and from then on played until 2015. So I was 32. Even though I only played 13 years, it's a long time, but it goes by really fast. And so it didn't really seem like I played a lot like the years say I did. But after I retired, I ended up coaching now with the Blue Jays, and now I'm living out in Michigan, completely different than California.
A little bit,
like you said, there's snow on the ground. We don't know what snow is in Southern California unless you go to the mountains. But yeah, just kind of enjoying that lifestyle now out here, and enjoying the coaching and passing on everything I learned when I played to these kids that I'm coaching now.
What was draft day like for you? I mean, it's got to be totally different, like how kids deal with it today. It seems like there's no waiting around. You kind of have an idea. What was it like for you back then? When I say back then, like I'm the young.
Thanks. Man, it was weird. Honestly, like nowadays everything's on the computer. You even have the draft on like MLB Network. But like I remember sitting at home. I knew I was going to get drafted. There was like a kind of a range that I knew I was going to get drafted in. I think it was between 3 and 7, rounds 3 and 7. And back then, the only way you found out is if you had internet and you're on the computer, or they called you. Well, me and my dad didn't have internet at the time, and so I was waiting for the call. And then all of a sudden, I get a phone call from my travel ball coach, and he goes, "Hey, congrats!" I'm like, "Hey, man, thanks. Congrats on what?" And he goes, "You got being drafted." I was like, "Okay, cool. What round? What team?" And he goes,
That's awesome.
"You got drafted in the 5th round by the Royals." I was like, "Oh, that's cool because they haven't called me yet." And so I found out through my travel ball coach that I got drafted. And then like an hour later, the Royals finally called me and told me I got drafted. So pure excitement. It's always one of those things that you want, especially if you're pursuing baseball and you live and die by it. It's one of those things where when it happens, it just hits you like real quick, and you kind of get numb about the feeling. You're like, I just got drafted. And then I went and hung out with some friends, and we had a good time. It was until I got on the plane that it really hit me the hardest. And I'm like, oh crap, like now I'm in a whole different world. I'm not a JUCO anymore. I'm playing with everybody that's on my like the same talent level as me. Now I got to turn it on. So but draft day was crazy because I had no idea until my coach called.
No, dude. I can't believe I never asked you that story, but that's a great story, man. It's actually a really good story.
Yeah.
What's the difference between the mindset, between JUCO and even going into the minors? I know at the JUCO level, I know the team that you were playing on was pretty high level. Between the team that I played on and yours, we seemed to meet in the state championship.
Mm-hmm.
The last couple of years, I think we have.
Yeah.
Our teams have. So it was a pretty high level. So what was the difference in mindset? I mean, did you actually focus? Did your focus like have to go up a little bit once you got into the minors?
I'd say like JUCO, it was one of those things where JUCO was more like I just felt like I was just playing. You know what I mean? Like I always felt like I was always like the best player, like on every team I played coming up. And like when I got to JUCO, like they always like told me like you're starting shortstop right away. So to me, it was just like I want to get bigger and stronger, you know, and I want to get drafted. And so like I just put in a bunch of time like in the weight room my year in JUCO, and it worked out. But I went pure off talent then. It wasn't like I knew the game. And I was like advanced in that, but as soon as I got the pro ball, the first thing I noticed was like you're not the best player out there, you know what I mean? And everybody else is just as talented as you. And so like I had to flip a switch, like all right, like what do I gotta do? Like, cause like when that happened, I go out there and everybody's like as good as me, and the game speeds up. And you're just like, oh man, this is fast. My head's spinning 1,000,000 miles an hour right now. What do I gotta do next to try to slow that down? So I literally had to sit there and think about like, all right, man, like what's gonna help you take the next step, because I can tell, like, I mean, this is like rookie ball. Like, it's only gonna get harder.
I was gonna say that. I'm like, you're saying that at rookie ball.
Yeah, and, you know, but like you're going from like JUCO, like where like you're feeling comfortable, like in JUCO in high school, you're feeling comfortable because it's your home and you know the people, you know everybody there. Then I'm playing against, you know, kids from the Dominican, Venezuela, like where they make a life decisions of like, hey, this is what I'm doing. I gotta play baseball. Like I gotta stop going to school and pursue baseball, or I gotta stay in school and just live back home. But like that's what they do, and we didn't grow up that way. It's like we had so many, we were so privileged, and we had so many choices in life. Like baseball is just an opportunity for us, you know, and for them it's life. And so like that's the first thing I noticed was like these guys, like they live by this, and like I gotta step my game up. And so I had to start thinking about routines. I had to start thinking about how I prepared. I couldn't just go out there and play anymore. It wasn't, I had to just go out there. I had to learn the game more. I had to learn what my opponents were doing to me. I had to learn that more on a different level. I think that's what helped me out the most, was just the preparation of my pregame stuff is the one that got me locked in and helped me advance.
Yeah. It's an interesting, I guess it's an interesting thought, you know, as far as the people coming from other countries and you know, they do look at it different. So what is, when you see them doing the things that they're doing, what is that, how is that different from yours as far as, let's just say, you know, a game's over. Are they staying later? Are they doing more work than what you would typically see? Or what was different about that?
It wasn't post-game stuff. It was more like how they went about their business, and how they played the game. Like the first thing I noticed was like I always got brought up like, hey, if you're laughing out there, you're not taking it serious. Like when you're coming up as a kid, like stop messing around. And these kids are out there laughing, having a great time, and I'm like, dang, man, like they enjoy the game a ton, you know. And I'm like, that's just, man, maybe I'm a little too stiff in that department, you know what I mean? Like where I'm just so serious all the time. And so that's the first thing I noticed to them. It's just how they did their work. It was the level of passion they did their stuff. Because the way I look at it this way, and from talking to a lot of these kids, was they want off that island. They want off their islands in their country. They want out of their countries so bad, and they want to make a living for their family. You know, and because there's not many opportunities back home if you're not playing baseball. So to them, this is an out for them to get out of the country and support their family and make lots of money. And so you can just see like the level of urgency that they bring on a daily basis. That's just, you don't see it because you see some kids brought up in a very like they grew up well off like in high school here in the States, and so they really don't got much to worry about if baseball doesn't work out. The motivation
is totally different.
way different. And it's just, and it's just that's the first thing you do. It's just passion, man, and passion and focus. Like it's just they're next level on that, and that's why like I love coaching them, because it's so easy to just work with, like because you know that they're gonna give it 200% every day and everything they got, you know. And that's the biggest thing I noticed from those guys.
That's cool, man. That's just a whole different way of looking at the game and how it's played. You know, I've heard people talk about how they almost think it's unfair that, you know, they're playing against people around the world as opposed to just people, you know, in the continental United States. But it is definitely a motivation. So in a way, I can almost not see their point, but I can actually see why they're a bit intimidated by it, because like you said, it's so easy to be just brought up, parents taking you everywhere, paying for all your travel ball and this and that. That's a totally different mindset.
Yeah. Well, it's like, you gotta look at it this way. Is you grow up like, if I'm in like East Cobb, Georgia, which is a huge travel ball community and high school area, like, and it's there's a lot of money there. And so what you see is a lot of those kids where like they're with their friends, they're paying thousands of dollars for stuff every month, because that's just how it is. And everything's kind of just, they're kind of everything's just handed to them, like it's cookie cutter, like, here you go, get the best of everything, go play, and if you do terrible, it's not your fault, it's kind of like one of those things, like, people just get brought up that way. And now you're playing against people that don't have that, and have this burning desire to take your job in pro ball because that's what they live and die for. And so that kind of hits you a little bit, like, dude, this guy's trying to take my job over here, and I can tell, and he's doing everything he can. So it's like, what do I got to do to go above him now, even though he's been fighting his whole life to get this opportunity. You definitely got to change your mindset when it comes to that, because if you don't, they're just going to pass you up. And it's easy to lose your job that way. And next, they're going to be in the big leagues making millions of dollars, and you're going to be, sitting on your couch doing nothing after, and wishing that you went to college and got a degree and did something else, And so you got to start thinking about those things.
So you got to get to the minors. I mean, you and I, size-wise, you're a little bit, about an inch taller than me, maybe?
Yeah, big inch.
Maybe. Yeah. So at my size, I never thought I would ever get there, and so it seems like it's not so much a long shot, but the odds are maybe stacked against you. So being in the minors, was that ever a thought? Was that something that worked against you at all, or did you even think about that? And how was the mindset there?
So when I got drafted, that was like the era of like tall shortstops. Like that was like the Jeters and the A-Rods and all that. That was like that time frame. And so you always got labeled as like, oh, you're only this tall. You're not tall enough to play shortstop. And so my biggest thing was like, all right, well, you don't think I'm tall enough, I'll prove you wrong. And so went out. My like height wasn't my tool in baseball, like my arm was my strength, and so I'm like, I'll prove to you that I can play shortstop another way. And so going out there, and I used to love throwing the baseball. So like, just go out there and, some people think throwing programs are just a joke to get by and just not care for like 10 to 15 minutes. But I went out there and tried to show it off, and so that actually helped me play shortstop in the big leagues, because like my height wasn't necessarily what they look for in a prototypical shortstop, but my arm definitely was. And so like, if I can prove that I can make the plays, I had plenty of arm to play on the left side of the infield. And so there's so many different things I started thinking about that can help me, even though I wasn't 6'3", and so I was like, all right, well, you're not tall and big, you guys start learning how to hit for some power. So just trying to develop, like, how can I be efficiently as the best with my body as possible, my swing that allows me to drive the ball. And it's almost like I sold out. It's like, all right, you can be an average hitter. You can be an average hitter and hit 300 and hit like 5 homers a year, or you can hit, between like you're at 270 with like 15 or 20 and playing in the big league.
Nowadays, you're an all-star, dude.
Yeah, and so it's like, I guess I was ahead of my time, because back then it was like all about the average. And so once I started thinking like, all right, I got to drive the ball, because there's literally like 500 others of me, like the same person of me. Yeah. If I hit 300 with 5 home runs, there's so many of these people out there. What's something that I can do to kind of just put myself in another area than them, And it was power, And so I was like, all right, well, And especially getting to the big leagues, it was like, all right, you're not a starter. You're more of a utility guy, bench guy. There's a bunch of those too.
Yeah.
So what makes you more valuable than them? All right, power bench bat, a bench power bat. You know what I mean? So it's like you have to start making decisions after a while. You can't just go out there and play. And my decision was, all right, well, I'm going to separate myself from this pack, and I'm going to try to start driving the ball. And it worked out. It worked out. I think that's what kept me in the big leagues, honestly, is like, if we keep this guy on the bench or we play him, we know that there's a chance that he can drive the ball to the park if need be, and so you got to just start thinking about what route you want to take after a while and what kind of player you want to be, because if you're okay with being like everybody else, then you're not going to play very long.
Well, let's talk about power in the big leagues. And so you and I were discussing earlier, and you hit a walk-off.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that like it was yesterday?
Oh yeah. That was Colorado. I remember going Oppo. I don't remember running the bases, but I remember hitting the ball. Yeah, it's just power. Like, I mean, I was a hitting coach the last 4 years before I turned manager, and just seeing what is valued, in the game now, and just like what numbers every front office sees in a player now. Like, I'm telling you right now, they pay guys $10+ million now to hit 230 with 20 plus homers now. And back in the day, that'd get you released.
Yeah.
Games way different now, and so the training's way different now. The way people go about their work in the off season's way different now. Just the players in general are just way different now, and it's just like you got to be able to adapt to that, because the game has changed. Like it or not, it is. So everybody's got to change their mindset on what they think is right or wrong now. So yeah, power's in. You're starting to see like a little bit of a balance of like kind of like the older thought process and the newer stuff a little bit now. But power and throwing the ball as hard as you can is definitely in baseball now, and that's all people care about. And you either got to adapt to it and accept it, or just go ahead and go elsewhere, because that's just the way the game is right now.
You are 10 years too early, man.
No doubt, I'd probably still be playing right now.
So we're going to get back to kind of this, but I talked to Sherry about this last night. One thing that I have never asked you, for whatever reason, because I think because you and I just became friends and we just talk about whatever. But I mentioned to her last night, I go, you know what? I've never asked Donnie, like, what was it like getting the call? Because that was one thing, like when I would ever think about anything, like getting the call was like it, right? And I'm like, what was that like?
It was crazy. Okay, so I was actually in A ball. I was in high A. We were in it.
You can't cut out, right? You can't cut out in that
championship.
Spot.
We just lost the championship. We're winning this, huh?
You just totally cut out. Like right when you started, you cut out.
Dang it.
Now you're
there.
Hear me now? You're good. Yeah, you're good now.
No, we're in the high championship. And so we had a 2-0 lead, and we ended up losing 3 in a row. And so we lost the championship. And so we're like, everybody's devastated. You know what I mean? So like, I'm just like a emotional wreck in the locker room. Season's over. We blew the championship. Coach calls me in, manager calls me in. I'm just like, oh my God, like what can you possibly call me in for? Like, right now? Like, what the hell? Like, we lost. Like, what are you gonna yell at me about now? And so he goes, hey man, like I know it was a tough ending, but you had a great year. But hey, you're gonna go to Cleveland. I said, for what the hell are you guys sending me to Cleveland for? You know what I mean? Like, I was like, there's no reason to go to Cleveland. He goes, yeah, you're meeting the big league team there. And I was like, oh my God, like what? And so he goes, yeah, you're going to meet the team in Cleveland. And he goes, congrats. And so it was like one of those things where like I was super like surprised and excited about, but I have like 24 dudes in the clubhouse
Yeah,
right now that are
you're like, hey
devastated.
guys, check it out, while they're all upset.
Hey, sorry, losers. I'm going to, like one of those situations. But like, it was such a weird. It was a weird time to get called up because of the time, the scenario of what just happened.
Yeah,
But it was just like, it's like, one, it's not something you expect out of A ball, and two, it's like something that like I personally was not ready for, but obviously very grateful for
yep.
them thinking about me, thinking that I deserved it. And the coolest thing about it was why I found out that I got called up was the GM went to a playoff game and I hit a pop up and it was really windy that day and I knew it was. And so as soon as I hit it, I busted my ass out of the box and I got the third. The guy missed it. I've got the third.
Jeez, dude.
Yeah, so I hit it a mile high and he missed it. I missed it because it was windy. And he goes, I just like the way you play the game and I want to reward you.
Wow.
And so that's like one of those things I always tell my players now. I was like, hey man, you guys always think about the numbers, man. Like all you gotta do is you gotta just show like you just gotta paint this one thing in their head, like, and that they love about you, and they will ride and die with you. Like they'll pound the table for you. So like that's the reason why he told me that solidified my call up right there, and that was like the coolest thing to hear. It was like because I played the game hard. It wasn't just because of my numbers. It was because I actually played the game hard and he really liked it.
So the one, you never know who's watching you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you probably tell your guys now, you never know who's at the game, who might see you do something. But two, the jump from A ball to the big leagues, what was that like?
I remember. Okay, so I remember my first game. I started at second base, and Grady Sizemore hit a rocket to lead off the game, one hopper right at me, and I tried to square it up, and it bounced off me, and I looked at the scoreboard, and it said E4, and I go, holy crap! I said this is what it's like up here, where this guy hits like a 110 mile an hour one hop line drive at me and I miss it and it's an error. I said, man, I don't know how they do it up here. And so I just remember that, like, because I think it was only there for like 17 games or 15 to 17 games, and it just seemed like I had no idea. Like, it was just like I was not prepared. It was cool to be there, but it was just like this game is so far ahead of me right now. Like I have so much more to learn. But the one thing I will take out of it is the conversations that I had while I was there. Back then, it was kind of like when you're young, you really didn't talk. It was like kind of just shut your mouth and sit at your locker and do your job. It's a lot different now. A lot of kids are a lot more comfortable, and they're kind of being told to fit in. Like, it's just like the welcoming. But like back then, it was just like, hey, youngin, like sit at your locker and don't say a word until we say something to you. And so like I did that, and lucky enough I had a couple of teammates that were really awesome and took me under their wing and kind of had some good talks with me and taught me what the big league game's all about, because it's a lot different than A-ball. And I also think that's when I realized that all my routines that I thought were good actually sucked. And so like just watching how they went about things and how they prepared, like that was a game changer for me, honestly.
I mean, you skipped 2 levels, man. That's a huge jump.
Yeah, it felt like I skipped 10, so it was tough.
So what is I've always wanted to talk like what the grind feels like. I mean, when in college, that's kind of where I figured out, man, do I have what it takes to even play this game? Because it felt fall ball was brutally tough for me doing it the first time. So I can't imagine like getting into pro ball, what the daily grind is and how you guys just have to mentally lock in and kind of just get focused on, what you're doing.
It's tough. It's, you go to JUCO, I think we played, 40 to 50 games, I think, at the most. maybe, and then going to pro ball and you're playing like every day, you know. And so I think it took me a couple of years. Like I used to be I was one of those guys where like if I had a bad game, like I'd go home with it. And then
Yeah, I can see
and I'd be pissed off about it, you know. I was like, man, like what the hell was that? You know, for 4, terrible at bats. And don't ever let it go, you know. And then you show up the next day and you're like, oh, I never let it go. Still thinking about the horseshit game I had last night. What do I got to do to be better today? Because I'm already negative. Like I already got my negative thoughts going into my cage work, you know, because I'm gonna think about everything I did bad yesterday. So the biggest thing for grind wise, I think, is just one, learning how to take care of your body. You know, playing 140 games like right away, like your first full season in the minors, like it's amazing how fatigued you get. And so like once your body's tired, like, and then your mind starts having to do extra work, and then you have to figure out how to stop that from getting tired too. And so just, I guess, trying to figure out how to like, I guess like I always go back to routines. It's like, what do I got to do on a daily basis that allows me to perform at the top level every day, mentally and physically. And so it took me a little bit to figure that out. It definitely, like, I remember my first year, even though I had a really good first full season and I was in Burlington, Iowa, like I think my motivation that year was I didn't want to be there. Like it was like it was one of those cities like where it was very, very small town, middle, like southeast Iowa. There was nothing going on. I think I played golf. Like when we're at home, I think I played 4 or 5 times as a home stand. Like it was just to get me out of like the mindset of just being there, you know. And
big change
also,
change from LA to Iowa.
Oh yeah, and they knew I was from somewhere else because I didn't fit in there, you know. So you're definitely a baseball player, and you're definitely from like the West Coast or something. But I think that was just more motivation, and it made me work. But it almost like I worked too hard that year, because I remember like in July when it got hot, like I was done. Like I went on like a big slump for like 2 weeks, and I literally like was too tired to even like think about how I was gonna like even get out of it. And finally my hitting coach just goes, dude, you're not even allowed in here for like a week. Like you like don't even show up. And then we'll get back to work when just go play the game, and then we'll come back in like when you're ready to, when your mind is clear and ready again, and you feel like it's like locked in, we'll start working again. And it was great because it was a reset, you know, for me. I think what a lot of kids nowadays, they feel like if they don't do something, they're not gonna do good anymore. Which it isn't true, because I've done this a couple of times with my players now. Is I lock the cages like on a day game, and I'm just like, we're gonna go play. And they're like, oh, this is BS. Why are you doing this? Like, whatever. And I'm like, hey, man, you haven't taken one bad swing today. Like, you haven't done anything to give you a negative thought today. Like, all you got to do is prepare for the game. And I remember it was like the first or second time I did it like 2 years ago. And we ended up scoring 17 runs that day. And they didn't think it was BS after that, but I get it. You know, like everybody has like it almost seems like it's unfair when you tell a player like, hey, develop routines, but yeah, you can't do it today.
Exactly. Yeah, and then you're just tell him to do the exact opposite.
Right, but at the same time, it's just like just going back to the grind. It's like you grind so hard every day, like you're overworking yourself, you know, and like you're starting to think too much, and you're starting to do this. Like sometimes you just got to go and play, and then naturally your thought process will go where it needs to go. You're still gonna swing the bat. It's not like you're gonna forget how to swing the bat. You're not gonna do this. It's just like mentally you need a reset, and you'll realize how amazing it is when you do that, because you just don't have the negative thoughts that pop in your head, or you don't get mentally fatigued from overthinking when you're not doing good, you know. And so the grind's real, man. Like, especially when you haven't experienced it before. Like, it's just it's just, you got to figure out what is good for you. Like, everybody's different, you know, and I think you just got to develop like some sense of like everyday routine, regardless if it's physical or mental, that's going to allow you to perform at the best, you know. And it takes a while to learn. Like, it's not like you're just going to grasp it right away. Like, it's going to take a lot of conversations, a lot of like experimenting, to figure out what works for you. And it definitely took me quite a while to figure that out, but it got me in a good place once I was there.
No, that's basically perfect. It's kind of exactly how life is in general, right?
Yeah,
and it took me a lot longer than that, man. It probably took me 41 years to figure most of that stuff out before I actually started implementing anything.
Yeah.
So, man, I appreciate it, buddy. I know we had a rough football season, but I appreciate you getting over the emotional letdown of that and doing this on a Tuesday. What I want to do, man, if you're good with it, in the middle of the season, I'm gonna, you know, we talked about, I'm gonna fly up to Vancouver if it all works out based on the current environment. But maybe we'll do this again and kind of get more into coaching and how you're doing up there.
Yeah, no doubt. That'd be fun. Vancouver's awesome. Hopefully we can go there. Bring your clubs. We'll have fun.
Right on, brother. Well, I appreciate the time, man. We'll talk to you soon, man. Thanks so much.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. See you.
All right, dude. See you.